Welcome to Tiff Talks Tech, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries of multifamily marketing tech, making it not just understandable, but dare I say, enjoyable. I'm your host, Tiffany, a seasoned multifamily marketer turned tech expert, here to guide you through your daily tech challenges with ease and a sprinkle of fun. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tiff Talks Tech. Today, I'm excited because I'm joined by Jacob Carter, who is the CEO and founder of Nurture Boss and author of the new book, AI and Property Management. Today, I'm excited because we're going to be talking about the evolution of AI in multifamily. But before we really dive in, Jacob, could you share a little bit about you for anyone who may not know you yet, and just kind of like a quick version of what you do in Nurture Boss?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. My background is professional software engineer for my whole career prior to starting Nurture Boss. So very tech oriented. I like getting in the weeds on technical stuff. So if you have technical questions, I'm probably your guy to answer them, but let's wait and see if I actually can first. But Nurture Boss, we focus on AI and property management, much like the book title suggests. And that's building solutions for multifamily that leverage AI to augment and enhance all parts of the lead to lease and lease to renewal lifecycle, as well as even things on the asset management side of the house as well. So happy to go into more detail there if you'd like, but all things AI and multifamily, Nurture Boss, we are your group for that.
I love it. That's great. I did read your book and I think it was amazing. I think it explains things in an easy way to understand. One of the things that you do talk about is how in our industry we use automation, AI, conversational AI, generative, agentic, all of that. We use it very interchangeably, but they're not
Yeah.
all the same thing. Could you talk a little bit about the differences?
Yeah, happy to. And I think my caveat here is that I think it is valuable to use the right word for the right meaning. I do
Yeah.
think that there's a way to over index on perfect clarity. So I think it's really useful to know the difference. I think there are certain times when it is inappropriate to use one when the other one is the correct one. But I do think we also deserve a little bit of grace when we're trying to
Yeah.
talk about complex topics. But automation at its core is really about a rules engine. If this happens, then do that, right? It's very basic in compared to some of the other definitions we can get into around AI, and it's something that's been around for a very, very long time. But automation most certainly is not inherently AI or AI driven. Generative AI is helpful to think of as kind of the overarching umbrella when we're typically talking about the kind of AI that we'd be leveraging in multifamily or a lot of other industries. I think of this as the brain, right? It knows how to produce new content based on patterns that it has learned in the past. And conversational AI is just one more step on top of that, where you're taking that generated outcome and then giving it new inputs. It's that back and forth that you're having with the generative AI. It very quickly turns into conversational AI.
Would you say
Agentic
that
AI.
generative AI is the same as like natural language processing?
Yeah, I mean, we get really like in the weeds here on this,
Yeah.
so we can for the sake of our conversation, I think that that's okay. Natural language processing is really about taking an input, right? That
Yeah.
somebody has done, like think chatbot style, and understanding how you can take that input and do things like get rough understanding of context, what they're referring to, categorization of the question that's being asked. So it's not nearly natively is robust or intelligent, if you will, as a generative AI, which is going well far beyond NLP to actually use its learning and training to produce sometimes novel outcomes or outputs, right? Based on that.
Makes sense.
I think agentic AI, though, that's really where the magic starts to happen. That's when you're taking generative AI or conversational AI and you're empowering it with the ability to interact with its environment. Yeah. Said differently, drive outcomes, actually do things, right? And I think that's where we really start to get value from AI and multifamily is on the agentic AI front.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to understand the distinction when it comes to looking for a platform that you're going to use because that will be able to tell the functionality of the.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also it's helpful to know that we default to automation a lot because it's something we're comfortable with, but it is wildly different than like an agentic AI platform. And I think at the end of the day, you should ask yourselves, am I trying to intelligently drive outcomes in real world results based on the technology that I'm using? Or am I looking to automate a process, right? Which are not
Yeah.
inherently the same thing.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Speaking of processes, I know in your book you talk about AI becoming this new infrastructure of how we work. What does it actually look like in our industry and how will we use that?
Yeah, I think AI will certainly be the new infrastructure. And what I mean by that, so my favorite analogy is for this scenario is electricity, right?
Mhm.
When electricity, when we harnessed electricity, right, as a species, it didn't just replace candles, right? It rewired the way we do everything: manufacturing, healthcare, food storage, communication. Everything changed, right? You don't use electricity, you exist in an electrified world. And that's what I mean when I say AI is infrastructure. I don't mean that we use AI. What I mean is that our world is powered by AI technology. I think that's where we're going everywhere, not just multifamily. When it comes to multifamily, though, we're talking about it showing up across the entire renter's journey, right? From search to leasing, conversations, on site support, ongoing resident communication, the marketing team, right? This is becoming more of an infrastructure type technology as we spread across those different areas.
Yeah.
I think a really good practical marker for when we've gotten there is when AI is no longer on the edge of the experience, but is moving to the center of the experience. So
Mm,
rather than answering a prospect, which is the edges, right? We're helping teams prioritize leads, spot bottlenecks, drive performance, right? More into the center. And that's what I mean when I say AI is infrastructure.
yeah, definitely. That totally makes sense. Are there things that we're using AI for in these kind of early stages that you think one day we're going to look back on and be like, that was ridiculous?
Yeah, I think a lot. So I think right
Yeah.
now, this idea of I have a chatbot, so I'm using AI is something that
Mhm.
we'll chuckle at down the road. I think a lot of people now are hyper focused on if AI sounds like a person or not. I think
Mhm.
as society at large adopts AI more and more, this idea that we need to somehow hide or mask that it is AI that you're communicating with will be something that we look back at and again laugh at kind of that being a priority for us.
Yeah.
At the end of the day here, I think that moving more toward that infrastructure piece, as we look back at kind of the bolt-on implementation that we have now across our internal workflows and external workflows will be something that has changed pretty dramatically.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one of those things where the context is so important. Like, I want to know if I'm talking to an AI or if I'm talking to a human. I don't mind talking to the AI. I just want to know so that I know how it can practically help me. And I think with agentic, like you're saying, it can help with a lot more than it used to in the past.
Yeah, definitely.
I know you wrote in your book that one of the biggest mistakes people make is kind of reducing the AI to just answering questions about the property. Uh, what opportunities are we missing when we think about it narrowly like that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, AI is capable of so much, right? AI can analyze documents, it can detect sentiment, recognize behavioral patterns across the renter journey, surface risks, operational risks specifically, spot trends. There's so much that when we go into that infrastructure mindset that AI is really capable of, that value reaches far beyond on-site teams or even regional managers, right? It goes on to operational leaders, asset managers, marketers. So reducing AI to this idea of conversation, using my analogy from earlier, is judging electricity by whether or not it powers a light bulb, right? It doesn't just help you answer; it helps you see more clearly, act earlier, and operate with consistency.
Yeah, definitely. And it can, give you the next steps of where you need to go from there, which is so helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
If somebody came to you and they were like, well, I already have a chatbot, so I'm good on AI. Like, what would you say to that?
Yeah, my question would be, well, then what, right? Okay, so
Right.
the chatbot answered a question. So what happens after the answer? Is it taking action, scheduling tours, pulling data from guest cards, updating records, escalating to humans when additional help is needed, and passing along
Yeah.
context? If the bot can't act, then your team's still doing all the work behind the scenes. So a chatbot's a tool, but what you actually want is, in the AI products that you use, is a teammate that owns its own outcomes, right?
Yeah, definitely. Are there things in our industry that you think are going to be standard as far as using AI to power it in the future that isn't necessarily talked about today?
Yeah, a lot of it is that more down funnel stuff. I think that it's really easy for us to wrap our head around AI in that chatbot mindset, even answering the phone and talking to prospective renters, right? Very top of funnel is kind of what gets all of the spotlight right now for AI implementation when those down funnel use cases are so powerful. So renewals is a really good
Mm.
example. Being able to flag renewal risks early and drive consistent and earlier outreach is a really good example. Another one that I like a lot right now is the idea of leveraging AI for continuous lease audits. So, we have all these leases, we have these ledgers, we have these compliance concerns around signatures and addendums. With AI, you can audit those things monthly, right? And you can get something that used to take hours and hours of human time done automatically, powered by AI, that not only allows you to ensure you're not missing revenue, but also catch any compliance risks as early as possible as well.
Yeah, and I think doing things like that, it gives on-site leasing teams more time to interact with their residents, their prospects, and just have that human element. And kind of going along those lines, there are these AI agents that we can start using to monitor, adjust, respond without the human interaction. What is kind of the best practice when it comes to where the human should get involved, where we should let AI agents kind of take it from there?
Yeah, I think that the scheduled jobs, right? The rote tasks, that is a great opportunity for AI. Judgment is a great opportunity for people. A way that I like to think about it is an on-site team member. When you come in every day, you have a checklist of things that you need to get done. Right? You have that application you got to process. You got to reach back out to the resident about the noise complaint upstairs. There's a package that got lost in the package room. A prospect walks in off the street and needs a tour. So you have a list of things you must get done, and then you have a list of things that pop up out of nowhere that take you away from that list of things that you have to get done. So it's 4 o'clock, you got an hour left in your day, and none of that checklist is done because you've been dealing with the people aspect all day. So if you let AI handle the checklist, right, then the people get to play jazz, right, and adapt in real time to the needs of the humans that are living at the property. And I think that's a really good, clear separation between the two.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Along with that, as far as like marketing teams, do you think that AI will make small teams even more powerful, or do you think it's going to raise the expectation of, being able to do more with less and get overwhelming?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think my answer is both. I think
Yeah.
the outcome is going to depend on the team. In the scenario of empowerment, agents can give marketing teams back control. So you don't have to chase properties for data. You don't have to outsource routine execution because you're overwhelmed and don't have enough time with a small team, right? You let a small team operate much like a larger one. The risk case, I think, is that efficiency without measurement creates the illusion of productivity, right? So faster or easier does not automatically mean better. The outcomes that you're driving matter a lot. So it's really going to depend on the team. And I think, again, you look at agentic AI as a force multiplier for small teams, but only for ones that are able to operationalize it into a system that they're measuring, right? And ensuring that those outcomes are actually occurring so that that more does mean better in that scenario.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Switching gears a little bit, I do want to talk about GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. I know as marketers, I mean, we talk a lot about SEO, but I think this is a new component that is going to come more into play in our industry. How do you think it will change the way marketers approach content and visibility?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the first thing, whenever we talk about GEO, that I think is really important and worth saying out loud is the first step to great GEO is really good SEO. So, all
Mm.
of that stuff in the marketer's brain about how to do a great job for the SEO for a property is not irrelevant now. It is more relevant than ever, right?
Yeah.
Great SEO is step one for good GEO. On the GEO side, yeah, I mean, we're going to start and already have begun changing the way we put content on our property websites so that when somebody's talking with Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, our property is more likely to be one of the sources referenced in the answers, right? One of the opportunities that's listed to the user, the end user, leveraging that AI model, whichever one it might be. But I think that it's a good thing. I think that the kind of content that resonates well with large language models can also resonate well with people viewing your website. It's more conversational in nature, right? It's more of, hey, here's a long thought out question that we often get, and here's a longer thought out answer that we often give, right? Really robust FAQs is a great way to think about that. So I think in the near term, it can benefit large language models and visitors of the website. I think in the long term, depending on what camp you're in, maybe the websites just become repositories for data that the large language models use, and everybody's interacting with ChatGPT, right? So we'll have to see where the future takes us, but it's definitely something that we should be focusing on now.
Yeah, definitely. Switching gears a little bit to operations and leasing. I know we talked about a few different scenarios, but are there any operational challenges that you think AI is really best to equip to solve right now as things are today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the really immediate win that on-site teams should be excited about is reducing the cognitive load or
Yeah.
constant context switching that on-site teams do. Right? I used the word jazz earlier. The job of an on-site team member is not factory work, standing on an assembly line doing the same thing again and again. It really is jazz, right? It's making it up as you go. It's dealing with scenarios in real time as they pop up. The important parts, right? The human interaction, the problem solving, constant, they constantly interrupt that admin work. It still has to get done. So this is where AI is incredibly well equipped to solve immediate problems. On the operations side, I use that continuous lease auditing example earlier. The person that has that job knows how difficult that job is and time consuming it is. So, I think there's tons of opportunity to make on-site teams' lives better with AI.
Oh, yeah, totally. Are there certain metrics that you think people should be looking at to know whether their AI strategy is working or not?
I think that it would be, I don't want to pick a metric that I feel comfortable saying, hey, every property should measure this
Yeah.
metric because every property is so different. What I will say though is that metrics that you choose should be tied to business outcomes, not activity, right? So it's not a question of necessarily how many messages did you send. It's a question of how many tours were booked, right? It's talking about cost per lead versus cost per lease. It's understanding how we tie these metrics to outcomes. I would avoid the trap of, again, that illusion of productivity that I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, where you want to not focus on what was done, but rather focus on the outcome that work drove.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's what people are looking at, prior to AI. We are always looking at the business outcome. So I think it's just in line with that when it comes to your AI, continue to go down that road.
Yeah, I agree. I think AI shouldn't be measured like software. It should be measured like you would measure an employee, right? Because at the end of the day, it's much more closely related to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to talk about change management and kind of the rollout that we see. One of the strongest lines I think in your book is that AI doesn't fail, change management does. So, why do you think it is that so many AI launches kind of fall short?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. I think the most important aspect is adoption and follow through. So, the categories I like to break it into is you really need that executive buy-in. You need the people at the top of the food chain that say, we are going to adopt an AI strategy at our company because we believe it will provide value and drive great outcomes, right? Then you need to take that kind of middle tier, we'll say regional for an operations lens, and you need to make sure that they are bought in on measuring those outcomes, right? When you're having your one on one with your business managers or your community managers, are you referencing those AI driven outcomes, right? Are we actually measuring those things? And then at the on-site team level, you got to have that champion, that person who's really excited, who's really bought in, and who is keeping track day to day, right? If AI is driving the outcomes, if it's working correctly, servicing issues. And those three levels of executive, regional, and on site need to have that buy in, need to change the way that they work, need to be constantly communicating with each other. This is not a set it and forget it, right? If we're buying in on the analogy that AI is the new electricity, I mean, that is a massive change. And it requires constant attention and buy in and adoption to make sure that it's successful. As far from set it and forget it as you can get.
I know executive buy-in can be such a difficult thing sometimes. Is there anything that really makes the point get across to the executive team of like, this is a thing that is gonna like make the difference when it comes to us signing on with any kind of AI?
Yeah, I think that you'll notice the kind of repetitive themes of things I'm repeating myself on, but I think that that's indicative of the value of that point, right? Which is outcomes. Executive teams are focused on outcomes. They're focused on
Like a
big
dollar
picture
amount.
numbers. Yeah, like NOI, right? Like this is what our job is graded on. So what you don't want to do is go and say this is going to increase NOI. It's like, okay, I've heard that
Yeah.
before, right? You want to
Yeah.
actually get specific. Here are the down funnel or downstream metrics that we're going to move that ultimately are going to drive the upstream metric of NOI. So, for example, if we're able to increase our leasing velocity with AI because it's doing X, Y, and Z, then we're going to drive down our vacancy loss, which is a huge detractor on NOI, right? So, being able to actually paint the picture of how you're moving the needle on that number, but executives care about numbers; they care about outcomes, right? And I think your conversation should be centered around.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were giving advice to a property management company who is implementing AI for the very first time, are there a couple steps that you recommend first thing off the bat that they should be doing?
Yeah, three things stand out to me that are must-haves if you're going to start exploring AI adoption at the property or portfolio level. The first one is you got to name the problem honestly. It's the thing we were just talking about. Like, why are you adopting AI? What are the pain points that you're trying to solve for? It shouldn't be because the property next door adopted AI. It should be because you see holes that need filling or gaps that need to be closed within your operational model that you feel AI can provide value. Then it's that defining what success means in advance, right? If you know what the gaps are, what does it look like when the gap is closed, right? What is the metric? What are the numbers that you're going to monitor, measure, and want to see move to know that the AI adoption was successful? And then the last one is what we talked about earlier is really building that internal alignment so that you have that executive, regional, on-site team buy-in going into it and making sure everyone is aligned on this being the right next step so that there's not internal friction that you're fighting alongside the change management process of adoption.
Yeah, and I think having those metrics as well is such a critical one of like you need to have that ahead of time of what you're looking to increase or looking to improve. Otherwise, you can say, yeah, I did great, but what's the proof?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I know this is another thing you talked about in your book, but kind of just the fact that competition is it's a good thing. Like it's making everybody better at what they do. Uh, as we see it increase in our industry, how do you think that that landscape of AI is going to change over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think competition is an incredibly healthy signal, right? When something becomes infrastructure, like I'm talking about, a category forms and competition flows, and that's good for everybody. Everybody's driven to be better, build better products, have more affordable products.
Yeah.
It means that the problem that it's solving is urgent, right? And valuable enough for multiple companies to try to run a business solving that problem. I think the flip side of that coin or the risk is that language starts to get really uniform. AI is
Yeah.
in everything, right? What product do you use today that doesn't claim to have an AI component? So it becomes tempting to choose based on convenience or price instead of outcomes, which we were talking about earlier. If everybody offers AI, you're going to find free AI, cheap AI, right? You're going to find AI that does this, AI that does everything. So it really makes the job of the buyer a little bit harder because you have to be diligent and you have to drive the sales process when you're purchasing new products. And again, just reiterate focusing on outcomes. What are the outcomes that you're after? And make sure the products or companies that you're talking to are actually driving, positive results toward those outcomes.
Yeah, I remember I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but when I was on the property management side, I was tasked with finding a chatbot for and this was like, I don't know, more than 5 years ago. So it was before ChatGPT really got big, but I had this whole spreadsheet of like, this is what I need the bot to do. These are the companies that have these exact functionalities and their costs. Like I was crazy on my spreadsheet about what each company had because you really do have to do that due diligence. You can't just settle for the first thing. Make sure it has exactly what you need.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love to hear that. And I think what I would encourage everyone to do, not only to follow your model and do your diligence and keep your records in internal decision making matrix, is to share that with the vendors you're talking to. Like, there's no reason to keep it a secret what you need in order to say yes. You know, if you let the folks you're talking to that you're getting demos from know, hey, this is how you win my business, right? This is what I need you to be able to do. This is what matters most to me. It'll
Yeah.
create a better experience for everybody. It won't waste time going down a road with a vendor who will never be able to support that. And it doesn't make you listen to pitches about features that you don't care about. The other
Yeah.
piece, and I'm curious if you had a row for this on your spreadsheet, is the people aspect, right? Whatever company you get married to, you know, you're gonna have to work with them moving forward. And I think feeling like you're with good people also matters a lot.
Yeah, like, for me, it was the responsiveness. I mean, I can't even tell you how many vendors I had where I would send an email and wait a week and a half for a response. If somebody responded to me within, like, a day or 2, it was like, bonus points for you.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is that's also true for prospects looking for apartments and why
Yeah.
products like this make sense, right? Because are you going to be the property that takes a week to get back, or are you going to send them back an email 30 seconds later? Because it does drive decision making, right?
Yeah, totally. And I will say this too, as being on the property management side and the vendor side, I have always said, like, when I was on the property management side, I would love for a company to give me a comparison list of like them versus their biggest competitor. But after being on the vendor side, I can say that that is a little bit difficult as a vendor for us to produce because we don't know what the competition has
Yeah, you
verbatim.
don't work there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always changing. Everybody always has new developments. So, if you're an operator and you're asking for that, take a beat and kind of come up with that list of what do you want? What's important to you? And then go to the vendor and ask if they have those things, but asking for a verbatim comparison can be kind of difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I don't work at the competitor's company, right? And
Right.
any information I have about them, I got from a website or from a story somebody told me, and I don't know if it's true or not. You know, so don't ask me to make you
Yeah,
something that perjure myself or what. You know what I mean? So yeah,
exactly.
I'm sympathetic to that.
Yeah. Okay, final thoughts. What are some of the biggest opportunities in multifamily we could be missing right now when it comes to AI and leasing?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that chatbot analogy of really just thinking too small, right? If you treat AI is just another tool, then you're going to use it like one, right? And you're going to be chasing these really small efficiencies or these really isolated use cases. And I think that the real opportunity is so much bigger than that. And it's rethinking how the business operates. And you know, intelligence is no longer a limiting factor when you bring AI into the fold. So don't let it be a constraint when you're building out how operations is going to work you know within your business or within your property. So it's really a mindset shift of stop asking whether something can be done and start asking why it hasn't been done yet, right? What are we missing that's stopping us from doing the thing?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I have one final question that I ask every single one of my guests. It does not have to be related to this whatsoever, but is there a tech tool that you are personally loving right now?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's easy. It's Claude. I think the thing I would really emphasize, though, is it's not like the Claude app on my phone that I talk back and forth with. Claude is capable, like a lot of the models are, of so much, and it's really taking the spirit of what I said earlier. What are the things that I'm doing every day, all day, that are repetitive, that take up my time, that take up my team's time, and leveraging Claude to build out those really bespoke internal solutions that do it the Nurture Boss way, right? So that we can really get operational efficiency in there. So I'm a really, really big proponent of Claude. I recommend everybody give it a shot
Yeah.
and try it out.
I think Claude is having a moment right now because I have always been a chat GPT girl. And all of a sudden in the last few months, I have just been loving Claude as well. And I just think it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and they put out you know really incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Fable 5 is the new model they put out that was in the Mythos family of models. And without getting too detailed about it, it's just very incredible what it's capable of. Its ability to understand giant chunks of context across many disparate sources has really been a game changer for what you can do with it.
Yeah, it's just crazy to see how far we've come. Like when I was initially looking at those different bot options, it was like you have automation and you have NLP and that's it. And NLP was just not there at the time. And so now all of a sudden it's like we're having full multi-context conversations with the AI and it's just insane how quickly that happened.
Yeah, I think that, the phrase you're using that's so important is context, right? Context
Yeah.
is king, and that's what's making the difference between something that's, pretty cool versus mind blowing is its ability to manage and maintain and organize that context.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been such a great conversation. Where can people find you and connect with you and learn more about Nurture Boss?
Yeah, I mean, our website, nurtureboss.io, has tons of resources. I spend most of my time talking on LinkedIn, right? I love to let people know what I'm thinking about in case maybe you find it interesting, what I'm getting excited about. I'm always creating content and putting it out there. It's always free. It's not behind like hey, give me your email address and I'll send you the PDF, right? None of that. I just want
Yeah,
everyone to kind of, see what I'm thinking about. And yeah, it's been fun for me. So that's definitely the place I'd follow along.
I love it. And I do highly recommend anybody who's curious to learn more, go check out Jacob's book, AI and Property Management, because it really does break it down in a way that you can understand. There's tons of research I know you did behind that as well. So, yeah, go give that a read if you haven't already. Thanks for joining Tiff Talks Tech. Tune in next time for more candid